but clearly the best dressed person on the panel. Or I'm sorry, Josh, I don't want.
I traveled the
best
furthest.
dressed gentleman on the panel.
I had to pay for my flight ticket, right?
All right, Bismillah. So why don't we begin with you? I think really what we want to talk about are some some bigger concepts. If you just set the intellectual table a little bit for us and get us thinking about some of these issues of these intersections of the changing dynamics of the Muslim market, and what are we looking for in the future?
Okay. I think what's really interesting is this concept of tension and also paradox, because if we take a wider view and we think about branding or marketing, actually some of the best products and services and brands and things that we remember highlight a tension. There is a good guy and there's a bad guy, or even that there is a paradox, right? You have an affordable luxury or something like that. And if we look at the Muslim consumer market, I might like to put forward that question that, you know, we talk about an American Muslim consumer, but do we mean American Muslim with a capital A and capital M, or do we mean lowercase a and lowercase m? Because if we take this on initial, first principles, there's this idea of congratulations, we have arrived. There are these Muslims and they are now consuming and there are now products. I kind of thought that they'd been around for a very long time. I thought that we'd been around for a very, very, very long time. So is it that we have changed in our identity? Is it that we are now this new demographic? Or is it that people have suddenly recognized us? I'm not quite sure what that is. So in some ways, I want you to think about the idea that words or concepts can be interpreted in a variety of ways. And I've got some words there, you know, ethnocentrism, you know, Occidentalism, Orientalism, or even, you know, by calling ourselves American Muslim consumers, are we self-orientalizing? Are we exotifying ourselves? Are we really these exotic creatures that have very specific needs, that have rituals in a different way than other people within the region? So I want you to think about names and terms and the way that it changes the way that we look at things. I'd also like to highlight the fact that we're entering, if I want to take a positive spin, this is a dual cool area, right? And this is why I've used the word syncretism. This idea that now faith and fashion, or spirit and spirituality in business and all of these things is being embraced and celebrated, and not just within the Muslim community. If I go to Northwestern University, they mentioned as well that there are these people that are wanting to study MBAs and they see a higher purpose as to why they're studying. I've got a picture of a zebra, or a zebra, wherever you're from. Hands up. Is this an animal which is white with black stripes or black with white stripes? Who says it's a white animal? Okay, 1, 2, 3, a few of you. Who says it's a black animal? Okay, a couple less. A lot of you, look, you have to participate one more time. White animal? Okay. Black animal? Okay, do you want to know the right answer? Well, it kind of depends, right? Recently, zoologists have tended towards the idea that it is a black animal with white stripes because your hair goes white, doesn't it? That's the reason. There's an absence of pigmentation. But if you're an anthropologist, you could say it depends on your cultural frame of reference. If you are from Africa, they found in findings, you tend to see it as a black animal with white stripes. If you're European, then it's a white animal with black stripes. And if you're a coconut, or you've been colonized, then probably you might see it as a white animal with black stripes too. That's my own interpretation. But I want you to think then that not everything is black and white like the zebra. There are different realities, there are different cultural frames of reference that very much color the way that we see things. But one thing that we have noticed is this idea that most companies that I talk to, companies, brands, people, students, whoever, they don't just want guidance, they don't just want education, they want transformational education or transformational leadership or market leading brands, and that's a completely different beast. And so I want you to think about this idea of transformational leadership, whether that's your product or your service or the individual. How does that happen, and how do we deliver it with transcendence? Because after all, we believe in the akhirah, the hereafter, right? But I want you to think then that in this age, and a lot of people talk about social media and online platforms, social media does one thing. It puts legitimacy in all of our hands. You don't need a business card or a formal job title to say who you are. You want to say something, you can say it, and that is the new reality. As a company, you have to accept an open source perspective where actually your customers are telling you what you have to do, and if you don't listen to them, you might not have a company tomorrow. So if legitimacy is self-defined, and if social media is this conduit where maybe there isn't an American Muslim consumer because actually there is a consumer and we connect, whether you're in London or Jakarta or Singapore or Kuala Lumpur or any of these places. So if it's about this self-defined identity, the next thing I want you to think about is, what about aliens and ambassadors? Because I think a lot of the rhetoric or the articles that I read have two perspectives. One is that it creates almost this idea of a Muslim alien, whether that's a good or a bad thing, right? Muslims are different, therefore they need halal, or therefore they need praying spaces, or all these sorts of things. And so in some ways you are alienating a community because you're demonstrating how significantly different they are, because if you don't, where is the market opportunity? But on the other side, if you said that we're all the same, then you adopt an ambassadorial position. And by this, what I mean is that you basically say, look, we are just like you, or actually you think that we're different and we're not in so many ways. And so this veneer that you paint over some very significant issues belies the fact that actually there are some really important things that we still have to tackle. So between those two positions, I'm thinking that really it is about authenticity, balance, and communication. And I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are this afternoon.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Can you just give him a round of applause, please? It was a perfect start to the conversation. So the real question is there actually a specific need for Muslims? Is there something special about us? As you mentioned earlier, Dr. Wilson, is there actually anything really special about us? And I'll bring it back to you real briefly. An executive at a large company once told me that the era of the American product is over. He was essentially saying, so this brings up this conversation around as American Muslims create products and create services to meet those needs of our consumers, the rest of the world is looking at us as an example in some ways. Are we going to use those things as a form of hegemony? Are we going to impose our products on other people? Or is there some other thing there? Underlying that is this idea that regular brands, non-Muslim brands, just normal brands in the world, they're trying to step back from the American brand piece and just put other identities and other characteristics forward. So if you could just touch on some of those ideas.
Okay, there's some really interesting things. It's a shame that we've got a short time.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the American glare if you start talking too long.
Okay, I'll give you the English cold shoulder. Now, if I can hold on to all of those concepts you're saying, I don't think it's the end of America, because America has been too influential in terms of the cultural output around the world. I think it's kind of one of the Muslim world's dirty secrets that, if you think about whether that's a nasheed artist or, you think about urban graffiti or color graffiti, as they would call it, all of these things, and even more mainstream, business school education. If you go to the Gulf, they aspire towards a Harvard or an MIT style educational process. So I don't think that it is the end of America. But what I would suggest, and that tends towards a more Islamic frame of reference, is I think that we are entering an age with social media of the concept of giving in the hope of receiving. Now, if you think about most business models, the idea is that you create something. You create a need and a want, or you respond to a need and a want. But what if I was to say to you that you are going to create and hope that somebody will like what you've created and hope that they will give you money for it? I think that this is more of an Islamic perspective, and this is more of what's happening in the world, right? That we then put a tag on as calling monetization. Now, that's that kind of one area. The other area that I want to touch upon is this idea that a lot of what we're doing supposes that Muslims are not being catered for. So this supposes that mainstream corporates or marketing theories or any of these things do not cater for us, do not understand us, are conceptually flawed. And this is why you have digital marketing, green marketing, feminist marketing. You have all of these niche markets and groups that basically put forward this bogeyman character, this monolithic entity which does not move forward. What if I was to say to you that if they then respond, so if all of the big companies make everything halal, have halal supply chains, don't use pork lubricants, all of these things, what happens then? Are we happy? I actually think not. And I think that one of the key focuses then is that it's not just about the American Muslim consumer, this is about employability. Why is it that we have to always think about how much we consume? The reality is that we should be considering what is the role for the Muslim within mainstream organizations as well. Male, female, different socioeconomic groups, different ethnic groups. This is what it's really about, because otherwise, if everybody certifies things as halal, all of the power goes away. This isn't just about halal creation for me. This is actually about making sure that we have enough money to pay our mortgages off and to live. And this is the modern phenomenological development. It's that we have created halal now, and it's not just about being compliant with the Quran, it's actually also about job and wealth creation. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The other reality is that we have change at scale, because nowhere have you ever previously seen a situation where I was with an imam, and we look at, I'll give you about 30 seconds, right? A slaughterhouse in Brazil. If you were to think that there were 4 slaughtermen who can slaughter chickens, they do 45 a minute. That's the reality. That's how much chicken we actually eat. 45 a minute, and it's still slower than mainstream slaughter, right? So when we think about this idyllic view, and I might touch upon, the fact that you're a fencer, right? So you're a swordswoman, I do Japanese swords, and it's kind of ironic that we are capturing this aspect of culture, but actually we should be looking towards the future. And the future is this. I mean, if we have this idyllic view of halal being in a village, and the slaughterman and the knife, and even, the other picture is very interesting of the video game, these Islamic warriors with swords and turbans and everything, then I think that we're missing the point of the future, because in the future, within our lifetime, we could be uploading and downloading our brains. You know, there are so many technological advancements. If you watch sci-fi, you're inspired by these things. How does the Muslim world cater for and respond to the advent of technology, and not just kind of piggyback on the social media thing? And the way that I would fit that in then is, what does that mean for us in terms of halal in the future, education in the future, consumption patterns in the future? It's going to fundamentally change the way that we're doing things. And I think I would like to kind of put that blue sky question out there to think, what is it that we're going to do? I mean, if we're going to be microchipped, if we're going to be uploading and downloading, if we're going to be creating things beyond simple apps. If you think about over the past few years, you've got smartphones now, you've got your 3,500 songs in one pocket, like Steve Jobs told us, you've got all of these things. What does the future hold? And at the minute, it should be more than meat and money, more than Islamic finance, and more than halal.
This is brilliant. This is great. This is brilliant stuff. I think the kernel in what you said, despite putting aside singularity, putting it to the side, which I love, and we could definitely talk about it. And actually, in the showcase, most of those things align with the 6 areas within the trend, the areas that we're going to see more development in, based on Moore's law, the singularity curve, into the future.